Alrighty, howdy pilgrims. Welcome back to your weekly dose.
Welcome back. Leading things off this week, we'll start with Kutt, a peer-to-peer sports betting platform that lets users wage bets directly against one another, and their $1 million funding round led by Lightning Capital.
Next up, we'll break down Securitize after they secured a $47 million funding round led by BlackRock.
I see what you did there.
Thanks. The company makes alternative assets like private equity and venture capital available for individuals to invest in using blockchain technology.
Interesting.
And lastly, stick with us for Mycelium Delirium Round 2.
Not again.
You guessed it. After Meati Foods, the maker of mushroom-based high-protein meat alternatives, just announced a $100 million C1 extension round led by existing investor Grosvenor Food and AgTech.
And there's your breakdown for this week's dose. Excited to dive on in, partner.
Here we go.
You see here, kid, you gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump.
This is Venture Pill, your weekly dose of startups and venture capital. We break down recent startups in the news and interview founders and investors to help you stay informed in the evolving world of venture. All right, leading off this week's dose, we have Kutt, a peer-to-peer sports betting platform that just secured a $1 million funding round led by Lightning Capital. Let's get into Kutt and how it differentiates from your other traditional sports books, which we've covered some in the past and thinking about better. So Kutt is a social betting platform that allows users to wager directly with other users on any publicly verifiable result in sports, entertainment, politics, finance, and more.
Yeah, and the more being like number of puns on this week's dose.
Over under.
Over under 48. Yeah, really cool. So traditional sports books are limiting. Bettors can only wager on what the book will offer, but by eliminating the house and moving control to the customer, bettors are limited only as far as their imagination will take them.
Goes pretty far.
That's really far. And the platform resembles basically like a betting social network with user profiles, chat capabilities, betting leaderboards, head-to-head history, and fan groups for users with shared interests. It's really the ultimate put your money where your mouth is platform.
Yeah, love that. We all have that friend who raves about the bets that they hit, but you'd love to have some kind of verification on their actual, yeah, exactly, a track record. And yeah, you know, when you're casually talking with a friend about, I bet you that this next 3 goes in, this allows you to actually do that in live time, which is awesome. A little bit more on Kutt. Users set the terms in terms of limits, odds, lines, teams, etc. of any wager that they make. Additionally, another differentiator here is that the platform offers no VIG odds. And essentially, to not get too deep into it, but to describe what that means, over 90% of the odds offered on FanDuel and DraftKings and all the other big players in the sportsbook space, most of those lines are minus 110, even though they should be 50-50 odds. So essentially, users are paying a commission of about 10% each time they place a bet, win or lose.
Yeah, and this has been the way that the industry has operated for decades, really.
Yeah.
Where the book, I mean, that's why casinos are successful.
That's how the house always wins.
Yeah, the built-in odds. And so you wonder, how does Kutt make money? Well, they're still taking a small fee from the winners, but it's much less than what a user would pay on a traditional sports book. And really, this fee is paid by the winner of the bet, which makes sense. So a lot smaller of a percentage. In their words, it's a small price to pay for the guarantee of getting paid on a bet that you've won against a friend.
Yeah, which is well said. We all have that same friend who seems to forget the $20 they owe you from poker night a couple weeks ago.
Remind them on the Venmo request a couple of times. Delete the Venmo request, which sends them a notification. Resend them again.
Yeah, they'll tell you they deleted Venmo. We all have that friend. But yeah, it's a cool way to, again, keep your friends accountable and actually have real stakes or a real way of enforcing the money that you won on a wager with a friend. Next, and this is really cool, the platform even houses personal social bets, like, for instance, betting on the length of your buddy's wedding or betting who can drive the ball furthest at your next golf outing. And the list goes on. That's where the imagination comes into play. Basically, anything that can have a verified winner, you can make a bet. So essentially, to do that, users would just click on the Request a Bet button and fill out a form with the details on their bet request. And all of that being under the Kutt umbrella, they want to really be known as the ultimate social betting platform, the place to go. And again, the idea here is to give the people what they want, not just what the big sports books are willing to offer. Increase the fun, the entertainment, and the value of every bet you make. This is a big claim here, but dare we say down with big sportsbook?
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, the small sports books that were trying to do down with big casino are now the big sports books.
It's true.
So,
you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
Yeah. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah.
But it's always going to be down with big something. Yeah, I think I can get behind that. I know of another company out there that's looking to reduce the amount that the house takes. It's a company called Sport Trade. I think that's been a common goal within the industry, to give some more money back to the consumer, especially in sports betting, where that can be a spiraling issue for many people.
Totally.
Addiction of sports gambling, and you can ruin your life gambling. But I think this is a better version of it. You know, you're doing it with a friend. You don't lose as much if if it all comes out to average out in the long run. You're not losing as much money because the fee is smaller. So
Right.
Ideally, I think that's a good mission.
Yes, and you just made a good point there. While we're super enthusiastic about this company, of course, beware with gambling. 1-800-GAMBLER. You know, don't go too overboard with it.
Yeah. And they actually conducted a study of the interest in Kutt. 1,000 bettors were surveyed, and they found that 82% of players are interested in wagering against their friends and others through a decentralized platform. They also determined that 80% of surveyed bettors are interested in wagering on non-sporting events.
Right, yeah, both some significant survey results, and it makes sense. I mean, not everyone follows sports as closely as you and I or other people may, but being able to bet on reality TV or anything entertainment and politics related, like, you really widen the total audience that may want to place a bet through Kutt, which is really cool. And then we wanted to talk about the growing competitive landscape here in peer-to-peer betting, maybe a rising tide lifts all boats type of situation. And so, yeah, just to give a little glimpse on some other players in the market, in March, a social sports book called Rebet, which has also received 7 figures in private funding, launched operations in 47 states, and they operate mainly through a sweepstakes type of system as a framework. Additionally, some of the bigger players, not quite DraftKings and FanDuel like the ones you're constantly seeing commercials for, but still big players like Underdog and Prize Picks have also gone live with peer-to-peer offerings since April. So starting to see this trend pick up, amongst bigger players in the space. And so with this influx of capital, Kutt plans to expand their betting markets and enhance the experiences offered on their platform. And lastly, just to talk about a little bit of traction, this is a young startup, just raised $1 million, and they have accumulated over 10,000 users already. So we close that segment up with a couple indicators of potential interest in this type of platform.
Yeah. Congrats to them on the early success. I think our eyes are often drawn to the big numbers, the 9-figure rounds. A mere $1 million, that's a lot of money. They're going up a lot against a lot of players in the big sports book, in addition to the ones you just mentioned. So an uphill battle, but I think they're onto something here. And, like we covered a lot with Better, if they can figure out how to set themselves apart and turn this into a marketing machine and a really strong brand, I think that's what will allow them to be successful.
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't you rather lose money to a friend who will end up buying you a drink down the line than a big corporation that you can't put a face and name to?
Yeah.
I feel like it's it makes sense.
Yeah, we'll have to make some sort of venture pill related bet.
Yeah, let's place a wager on the success of Kutt. How about size of their next round?
Size of their next round, or when their next round will be.
Sound off in the comments for what you think the wager should be. I got a crisp Andrew Jackson on the line against Sam here.
Whoa. There you go. All right, our second company of this week's dose is Securitize, which just announced $47 million in funding led by BlackRock. The investment also included participation from Hamilton Lane, Parify Capital, and TradeWeb Markets. And Securitize is leading the tokenization of real-world assets, driving the compliant digitization of financial assets through blockchain technology.
Oh my goodness, I had to hold that in, that whole sentence. That was full of buzzwords. That's awesome.
Well-crafted.
Yeah. Had to fight every urge there to not scream it after tokenization. But
no democratization even yet. Yeah. Just hold your horses.
Yeah, and so while you're holding those horses, let's get a little deeper into the background for Securitize. The company was founded in 2017 by Carlos Domingo and Jamie Finn, who envisioned using blockchain technology to bring automation and liquidity potential to alternative asset classes. Thus, they built Securitize. So, more specifically, what does Securitize actually do? Securitize enables issuers to raise capital and allows investors to access alternative investment opportunities in a fast and transparent way, bringing the two together like never before.
Yeah, so think about like private equity and venture capital, traditionally hard to access asset classes, especially compared to public markets and stocks, crypto certainly. And unlike other platforms that require you to make substantial deposits through the fund's life cycle, Securitize collects your investment up front, so there's no further action required on your part throughout the life cycle. Before your funds are used by the before your funds are used by the master fund, your investment is held in an interest-earning money market account, which will be automatically invested in the master fund when required.
Right, and Securitize is uniquely positioned, and this is truly unique, to allow investors various options in terms of liquidity, including listing on their secondary market on the platform and receiving redemptions on demand for participating funds. This way, you aren't tied to a 10-plus year lockup period like you might be elsewhere with other private equity and venture capital investments. Additionally, and this depends on the fund structure, but distributions are automatically reinvested into the fund or added to your Securitize account, allowing you to reinvest in the same fund, invest in another opportunity on the platform, or transfer the distribution to your wallet of choice.
Yeah, I love that differentiator there and the liquidity options on hand, which is pretty cool. And that's what, again, I think what the blockchain technology allows this company to provide. So what investments are available? Well, first, they have over $600 million invested and over 500,000 accounts on the platform since 2017, since its inception. Only 3% of investment opportunities, though, actually pass their extensive due diligence process.
Which is what you want to see.
Yeah, so there's only a handful to choose from, maybe about 10 or 12 if you look at their website, which we have linked, as always. And some examples of note, recently they actually announced BlackRock's USD Institutional Digital Liquidity Fund, which is the world's first tokenized fund on the blockchain by the world's largest asset manager in BlackRock, which led this round. We also saw KKR in the mix with the Healthcare Growth Fund, Blockchain Capital, which is a VC firm in the space, offering one as well as some other VCs. It was pretty cool to see those big names partnering with Securitize here to offer this to individual investors.
Yeah, definitely awesome to see these seemingly promising opportunities offered on the website. BlackRock, like these are big names, funds that people would love to participate in. Usually just actually getting involved in them is the hard part. Also want to mention that this feels like the first blockchain company that we've covered in quite a little while.
Yeah, maybe one here and there, maybe, but
maybe a splish or a splash here and there, but for the most part, feels like since the craze of 2022, early venture pill days, probably our first 20 to 30 episodes, we were pretty deep on the blockchain craze, but we saw it cool down, and then we had the big AI craze. It's awesome to look back at the timeline and history of venture capital just in the past 2 years that we've been doing the pill. But this has to be one of our favorite use cases that we've seen, one that everyone can get behind: democratizing access to alternative asset classes. Yep, there it is.
There's a lot of buzz with the buzz button this week's dose.
Putting that button to good use. Yeah. Love to see it. And as a final note here, this is now backed by some of the biggest names in asset management. We've talked about BlackRock a couple of times already. So it's an indicator that they're seeing some value in getting ahead on this trend. And again, one that everyone can get behind, right? Being able to participate in these exclusive, great opportunities for investments. Like that's a new ball game, really.
Yeah.
Democratization at its finest.
Yeah. I mean, we love it. Our goal with Venture Pill, one of them is to democratize access to information about, one of the coolest alternative asset classes in venture capital. This is right in line with our beliefs. Obviously, there's still minimums involved, and you need to be at a certain point to afford these investments. But for a lot of people to diversify their portfolio, it's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, that's very well said. And a $47 million round will be interesting to see if this trend continues, something that we, continue to see. Again, everyone can get behind wanting to diversify their portfolios and breaking down the barriers to getting access to these exclusive asset classes. So this will just as an overall industry, it's the first company like this that we've covered, but curious if we'll see some more in the coming weeks, months, and years.
Mm-hmm. Tabs will most certainly be kept.
Yes, they will.
Securitize. All right. Rounding third base, heading for
going home.
He's disregarding the third base coach's stop signal.
His helmet fell off.
We have Meati Foods, the maker of mushroom-based high-protein meat alternatives, which just announced a $100 million Series C1 extension led by existing investor Grossvenner Food, as well as AgTech. The round also included participation from other existing investors, Prelude Ventures, Bond, Revolution Growth, and Congruent. And we wanted to break down, before we get into what the company does, a little bit more on their funding journey before we dive in. Just January of last year, they raised a $22 million Series C extendo. July 22, they raised a $150 million Series C. July 2021, they raised a $50 million Series B. In September of 2020, a $28 million Series A. And to start things off, they raised $4.8 million in seed funding back in 2018.
Yeah, so just doing some quick mental math there, that's over $350 million raised since 2018. Thank you for taking us along that journey.
Yeah.
A ton of money to be poured into a meat alternative, mushroom-based startup. Love to see that. And so now let's get into what they are actually selling here, which is their mushroom root meat alternative. For the loyal pilgrims out there, we have more Mycelium Delirium. Here we go, deja vu all over again. And that is a callback to episode 54, where we covered Fable Foods, which is another mushroom-based meat alternative startup based out of Australia. So here we are, some 70 episodes later, still talking about mushroom-based meat alternatives. This is a similar concept, but they have much more funding, as you just highlighted there. And for those who don't remember and aren't constantly reading up on mushrooms and mycelium, mycelium is essentially the fast-growing, nutrient and protein-dense root-like structure that grows underground as kind of the base of the actual mushroom.
Yeah, and so 95% of Meati's products are made up of this ingredient made from mycelium, this mushroom root. And therefore, they invested in a massive facility they call the Mega Ranch.
Hell yeah.
Which they claim will be able to produce anywhere from 10 million to 45 million pounds of mushroom root per year.
That's insane.
That's enough to feed a village.
Yeah, gotta be.
So let's get into their 4 products. Today they've got crispy cutlets, classic steaks, classic cutlets, and carne asada steaks.
Delish.
Yeah, and they did look pretty tasty.
They looked great, I gotta say. And we're, 2 Texas men here, and we give it a stamp of approval. They look delicious. Also digging into the ingredients. I know a general concern with meat alternatives is that there might be a lot of, while there's not meat in there, there might be some chemicals under the hood that are just as bad, if not worse, than eating meat. But these look pretty much, 95% mushroom root, not much else in there. So that was a concern that we wanted to check out and get under the hood a little bit. And so on top of that, all of them have great macros. As many of our listeners know, it's beach season, or at least it is here in Austin, Texas. So for everyone out there on the venture pill muscle building diet, which Sam and I are, on average, these portions have about 18 grams of protein, 10 grams of carbs, and 2 grams of fat. So certainly a healthy substitute for meat, getting a good amount of protein in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And for those wondering where you can find them, it's available in nearly 7,000 stores across the United States. Stores like Target, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Wegmans, and more. Your classic favorite big grocer in the neighborhood.
Well, besides H-E-B.
Wow.
We don't know if they're
Good
at
old
H-E-B. We'll have to
H-E-B.
just scrounge the aisles.
In addition, and this is maybe an indicator of how high quality the end product actually is, you might find meaty in one of your favorite restaurants, including Emmer and Rye right here in Austin, Texas. One of the
High quality joint.
Yeah, a high quality, high rated joint in Austin. Very artisanal, real foodie spot to go to. So if they're serving it, you got to think that, you know, it tastes as advertised.
Yeah. So head over to the website, one, to find where you could find it near you. That's how I found out that, there's a couple restaurants here close to us that we can find it. So if we want to taste it, see how a restaurant's preparing it, that'd be cool. In addition to those stores, but also got to mention, this is one of the most detailed and informative websites we've ever come across. We did not even scratch the surface for those of you who are dying for a deeper mycelium delirium.
Oh yeah.
So I know that's everyone, but yeah, they just have like a novel's worth of information on mycelium and how they grow it and their product and their philosophy. It was really cool. In addition to the whole timeline of how they've built this company.
Yeah,
so
even recipes, ways to prepare it, like really in-depth. Any question you may have about this product, they've thought of it and covered it on their website. It is awesome.
Yeah. And so what will really set them apart from competitors? We covered one in the past. There's others out there, not just mushroom-based. Like there's a lot of just meat alternatives, trying to get people protein in a healthy way that doesn't rely on meat. We think it's really coming down to that facility, that mega ranch that they built and invested in, that can produce all those pounds, millions of pounds of mushroom product per year, as well as the capital. I mean, we covered both of those. $350 million raised over the last 6-ish years. That is going to put them in a good position, just pour fuel on the fire for them to continue to grow and really grab the market.
Yeah, and this one really weaves in several trends, especially with younger generations. One being veganism, right? Like being able to get that protein that every human needs without, taking an animal's life. Additionally, being environmentally conscious. I imagine while that is a boatload of mushrooms, that is certainly still, I assume, better for the environment than
I wonder how much water it requires, because that's a big thing with the environment.
That's true.
Obviously, is like not only, like when you think about almonds, that requires so much water to produce like the almond milk in the fridge, or even for like a steak, like the water that goes into all the grass and feeding the cow, right?
It's true. And then one more trend, which you mentioned, we've covered a couple companies on the pill, and we've gone into it at length, but as a podcast, we are long on mushrooms. Like it seems like every day there is a new use for mycelium, whether it's food, whether it's like, I saw a company that was making tires out of mushrooms. We've seen companies making like clothes and other materials out of mushrooms. Really seems to be the resource to use, even during South by Southwest. Remember we saw that booth that had a startup that was all about making mushrooms as well.
I saw that guy later on, like a couple weeks later, at a coffee shop that he works at. I was like, I know you from somewhere.
That's awesome. But I mean, it really seems like mushrooms might play a bigger part in the future than many expect or anticipated or are just even aware of. Seems to be a multifaceted purpose for these beautiful mycelium deliriums.
I mean, there's a reason we love them. It's because we're fun guys.
Yep, two fun guys.
So a great way to wrap up this week's Dose Partner. An interesting trio here. Mushroom-based meat, democratizing access to alternative assets, and of course, peer-to-peer sports betting.
Of course.
Where can you get that, folks? Where can you get that? Nowhere else.
What a spread. You got to love that. The pleasure was all mine today, partner. Next week, you'll have the pleasure.
Okay,
Allow
take
me
the
at
pleasure
this
next.
time.
Yeah.
But as always, want to thank our listeners out there. It's been awesome engaging with y'all on social media and hearing some feedback. And yeah, just appreciate y'all sticking with us. And again, you know where to find us. We'll see you next week. Doctor's orders. Take this dose sitting down, maybe in traffic, maybe at your desk. But either way, probably should be sitting down on a full stomach, I think we said. Maybe drink some water beforehand too. Have it nearby.
We don't want an overdose on our hands.
No, by no means. But yeah, no, as always, to all of our dose takers out there, appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Catch y'all next time, pilgrims. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another dose of startups and venture capital. And as always, we appreciate our pilgrims spreading the word about the show. Share with your friends and help someone else make the pilgrimage. See you next time.
She told me that she only bumps my music when she's lonely. Thinks my vibe's a little low-key, okie dokie, that's alright, but wait, I don't know how to do